Hello and happy Friday. It is a super hot Friday here in Southern California. Hence, I'm sitting sleeveless in the little office section of my room at home. And probably many of you are as well if you live in Southern California without air conditioning like myself. It's hard to believe it's October sometimes around here. Sometimes it's the hottest time. And much of our state is still on fire. If you're in Northern California, you're really feeling that too. And my heart really goes out to you. So, October is a very big month for us here at Reactive in many, many ways. In clinical ways, we're kicking off our first virtual boot camp for people with Parkinson's. I'm super excited about it. It's our first time doing a boot camp, first time doing it virtually. First time for a lot of things when we're in a pandemic, right? So we've been working on that with our wellness team. I'm super excited about it. We have a weekend course coming up with all of our education pieces. This is our Cultivating Central Nervous System Connectivity course. And literally, this is like everything we do and learn like in one place. It's pretty much my heart, soul, passion, not just mine, but for our whole team, is how can we really cultivate a place for neuroplasticity in people with neurologic disorders. So that's coming up actually next weekend. And then at the end of this month, or towards the end of this month, we're going to open our mentorship group, which is the Brain Bites community. We're going to open it up again. We started it in May, and we've had many people, thank you so much, reach out wanting to be a part of it. And so we're going to open it back up again. And I am really excited about this. These are the things that just keep me going these days, to be honest. So it's a big month for us. And right now, Brittany, Kim, and I have been putting the finishing touches on the course that's coming up next weekend. And we talk a lot, and we talk a lot about this at Reactive and with other people too, of where we get stuck in complex cases. And there are a lot of themes, a lot of overlaps here. This is a major area we talk about when we mentor residents and fellows and other clinicians, and just even for myself, where am I getting stuck? And there's definitely helpful ways to get unstuck. So that's what we're talking about, getting unstuck today. And we're going to talk about one, like what are the areas where we tend to get stuck in the complex cases, especially. We're going to talk about our methods and framework for getting unstuck and put this through a couple of examples, actually, so that you could see this. So I want to start with the areas, and you probably know these well because you experience them like I do. So number one, so if we just think of just in getting and understanding the person in front of us, the relationship with them. Maybe you are sensing it just didn't quite click. The connection's not there. The person didn't really seem to be committed. They don't seem to really understand what we're doing. That's a big area of getting stuck. Absolutely. One, and I would put that kind of in a category of the relationship, right? So you're stuck in that connection piece, that therapeutic alliance. Another common place to get stuck is that there's so many things happening. I think this is one of the most common places that people will get stuck. So it's a super complex case. You're like, where do I start? Where do I go from there? How much time do I spend on this? What about this? Like, they have, 20 different underlying impairments that are contributing to this functional problem. Where do I put my time? So prioritizing, right, is a big place to get stuck. Where do I start? Where do I go? And how do I prioritize these things? And, maybe you get stuck with the assessment. Like, did I test all of the right things? And did I like make the right prioritization of that? Or how do I even interpret this? Like, I see this and now I don't know what to do with it, and I'm feeling kind of stuck. I got some great questions emailed to me from somebody who took our dystonia course of like, okay, I know the ideas behind this, but now how do I kind of take that information and implement it? How do I go at looking at somebody's movement and then changing it again? So we do this a lot in dystonia. So you might get stuck like, I know I need to change movement, but I don't know where to go next, right? So that's a really common area to get stuck. And maybe we're sitting there and we're working with somebody and it just doesn't seem to be working. And we question, like, is this intervention working? Is it the right intervention? Am I doing it right? A really good example that came up with for a recent emailed question to me as well. We have this, one of my favorite handouts is a cheat sheet for sensory discrimination training. It talks you through step by step of how you would do that and progress it. And someone emailed me like that they were seeing a few people with functional sensory symptoms and using the cheat sheet and training with sensory discrimination, and they're not getting better. And so it doesn't seem to be working, and they're like, I feel stuck here, right? So great example. And when I hear that, I really go through kind of a series of questions in my head. And that's what I wanted to really share with you. The second step is, what is our method for getting unstuck? How can we question ourselves to go back and go, okay, let me think about these questions. So if you think about our general structure of sessions with a person and go through kind of that initial listening and subjective and therapeutic alliance part, the objective, the assessment, the intervention pieces, we have a method of questions that we would ask all along the way. So first and foremost, I would say like 100% foremost, do I actually understand the person and their beliefs? So for example, I will give the sensory example. If they have sensory symptoms and you found a sensory discrimination problem and you're treating it, but they actually believe that has nothing to do with their problem, there's going to be a huge disconnect, and I pretty much guarantee they're not going to get better because the belief's not there. So that's a big one. Did I understand the person and their beliefs? And when I say the person, like, do you know that person? Like, if they're retired, what did they do? What did they do for work? What did they do for fun? What does that tell you about them? The way they think, their personality, what they really admire, what they care deeply about. Do you understand them at that level? That's a question to ask yourself. Second and very, very important. We're going to talk about this a lot in our weekend course. How are my beliefs about the symptoms impacting the plan? So do I have beliefs about pain, about fatigue, about awareness of my body, about functional symptoms? How are my beliefs changing that therapeutic relationship? Because they have a big influence. So you want to ask yourself about that. For example, if you believe that a person might be making up their symptoms or lying or falsifying them, that's going to have a huge impact on your intervention and their ability to improve. That's maybe an extreme example. Another example of beliefs is if you believe that moving when a person has pain, if you're fearful of that, that will impact the therapeutic relationship, and the person will sense that fear as well and likely experience some of that as well. So, two big questions so far. Did I understand the person and their beliefs? How are my own beliefs affecting the situation? And what is the person's expectation and level of commitment? So I just literally got out of an evaluation with one of our amazing PTs with Ari. And boy, I don't know if I've even met a person who has more commitment. This person was like, how often can I do this? How often should I do it before I see you again? Like just ready to go. And a high level of a commitment. Now we have to set the expectations too. So this was our initial evaluation. So we could really review, we use a goals sheet together with the person. What are, and outline those goals with them. So for example, this person has dystonia. I heard you want to be able to sit comfortably without dystonia. So if we set this goal, is that a worthwhile goal? And they're like, yes, please. Okay. So that's the expectation to reach that goal. Here is the amount of practice that it's going to take to get there and the frequency and so on. And really understanding, that, or them understanding what the expectation and commitment is, and do they have that? Not everybody does, and it's a really important part of the conversation and your relationship with them. So that's three big questions to ask when we think about how we're assessing them. We want to think of the pie chart. So it's been a while since I brought out our lovely pie chart. It's one of my favorite things. This is a clinical pie chart. We look at kind of the underlying impairment level pieces. So when we go to objective exam, we want to ask ourselves, did I miss something here? Did I check the sensory system, their motor control? Did I check autonomic? Did I listen and attend and ask about psychosocial and environmental contextual factors? Did I assess physical limitations? Like, do they have the joint mobility for that? Do they have the neural dynamics intact? So we have to ask ourselves if we actually got all of the pieces of the pie. So we might need to go back and test that. And then after that, when we put together our assessment, we have to ask the question, like, did I get that right? So is motor control actually that big, or is the autonomic piece even bigger? And oftentimes, I would say, all of the time, this pie chart is so dynamic, it's changing all of the time. So what we saw initially might change. New context, new environment, our pie chart changes. And so we have to be willing and ready to go back and reassess the levels in our pie chart. So that's the question that we ask with assessment. Now with intervention, there's a lot of questions we can ask. I want to hone in on a few key ones. So one is, did I progress too slow or too fast? And a sub question of that is, have I challenged the person enough? So I have a person that I evaluated a couple of weeks ago who had been discharged from her other physical therapy, as in like having a plateau. And what was really apparent when she started is that even in that first day, we shaved a good 7 seconds off of her 10-meter walk, just by ramping up the challenge a little bit, adding some really nice enhanced expectancy, having her make some great predictions about her movement. And already she was out of plateau range, and she's just been going really like just like crazy now with great improvements. So she just needs to be challenged more. So I find that for people. And sometimes I'm scared. And again, that goes back up to that kind of therapeutic relationship. Is my fear getting in the way of them, of challenging them enough? In some cases, we actually progress too fast. I think this can happen in cases of CRPS, for example. This is something that Brittany will talk a lot about in our weekend course. And sometimes too slow. So that's a question to ask about your progressions. And going back, so intervention wise, asking yourself the question, have I started to stray away from that person's specific goal and priority? So that kind of loops us back up to the therapeutic relationship. Do I understand it? And am I keeping my eyes on the prize? So that was something I talked about in the evaluation today that Ari and I did, was with this particular person. I said, here's our prize, being able to sit comfortably without dystonia. And I told him, I said, hey, like, every session, let's check back into that prize. That's your prize. I don't want to lose sight of it. And that's important because as we did the evaluation, we also found other things like balance was impaired arm swing, all of those things. And we will likely address all of those. They will likely all get better, but the prize is what the person identified. I know that seems so obvious, but it's really easy, right, in complex cases to kind of lose focus on that prize goal. So, am I addressing that? That's the question to come back to. I always ask this of myself in incorporating the optimal theory. Have I set the person up for autonomy and enhanced expectancies? It goes so far, sometimes farther, often further than anything else that I do. So I ask myself that question in my intervention. There's a lot that we do, and we can incorporate this piece into every intervention that we do. I come back to the pie chart. Is my intervention matching my priorities? So if I identified that the autonomic piece is actually really large, which quite honestly, the person that we worked with today, like, he identified that. This piece, actually, autonomic psychosocial, he's like, my stress threshold is so low. It doesn't take much. And then boom, my dystonia is there. So he identified it. We identified it. Now, if our intervention suddenly we were doing sensory and just, here we are hanging out in single leg stands, having a great time, dual task, it's fun, but we're not addressing what we found in our initial pie chart, we're going to get stuck. So asking yourself that question. And then one of the things, and I kind of went off on the soapbox of this last week, is am I doing enough? So if I find kind of stuck in intervention and we're not making much progress, is my frequency enough? And along with that question, do I need help? Do I need occupational therapy? Do I need a psychologist on board? What other pieces do I need to help improve this person's lives? So those would be the questions that when the intervention, when you're feeling kind of stuck, to ask yourself, did I progress too slow or too fast? Am I challenging them enough? Am I addressing that person's eye on the prize, goals and priorities? Have I set them up for autonomy and enhanced expectancies? Is my intervention matching my pie chart priorities? And am I doing enough? Do I need some help? Tammy asked, have I shared the pie chart lately? Good question. We do have the pie chart available for the download, so thank you for saying that. And I will make sure to find that link and put it in here. One of the things that we've done for our course is pulled out like all of the things, is we put them together in a workbook, because we tend to use all of these in little different ways with different people. And so we have a workbook for functional disorders, for central pain, for dystonia, for patients in general, that has all of the pieces here. So the pie chart, I brought some of my other favorite here, the river runneth over one. So this is a great educational tool and great also for getting back to that initial, if you're stuck with building that relationship and making sure you really understand the patient and that they also understand the disorder. This is a really good one. And then this is probably my favorite, the understanding your symptoms pie chart. So this is the one where the person fills this out and they create a pie chart where they say, you know, my symptoms are coming from my nervous system, tissues, my life, the environment around me, and they create the pie chart. Huge help for understanding the person's beliefs and understanding of their problems. I love this one so much. So I'll put links for those for sure. So I want to give an example to put all of these pieces together. So Chrissy and I worked with a person who was referred with cervical dystonia. This was one of those examples on initial evaluation where we were like, oh, this seems to be more than that. So there's cervical dystonia and there's some arm dystonia. And there seems to be a functional connectivity issue or functional pieces that were overlaying those. There seems to be a vestibular component as well. And this was the particular case, which I think is so common. It's like, holy cow, where to begin, especially when you just planned a whole evaluation that was very specific to cervical dystonia. And so we got to ask our questions. So the very first thing is in that relationship, do I understand the person and their beliefs? Where do they find their symptoms coming from? Oh my gosh, as soon as we listened, it was so clear. And that person really identified, you know, my eye movements have really felt to be a source of this problem. And then she said, and my neck stability really feels to be a source of this problem. So just listening to that, now it took us a while to get there. That wasn't just like the first answer. Then we knew where to go with our testing. We knew where to start our intervention planning, and quite frankly, she's doing amazing already. So we had to understand that person's beliefs about her symptoms, and so that we could then go. Now the big question comes then, where do we go, right? So we had our whole pie chart. We felt then, based on that, we really need to look at motor control. We need to look at sensory, and for sure the autonomic contributors to those. So that was the start of it. And then each session we're kind of reevaluating that pie chart. How is she responding? Do we need to like ramp up one of these a little bit more? Today we really ramped up the motor control piece, and that seemed to make a big difference. We've also been addressing some underlying physical limitations. So we addressed nerve tension as well today. So, and we'll see, maybe that has no change in the symptoms. Maybe it has a big change in the symptoms, and then we'll readjust our pie chart on that. So that's an example of where we might get stuck and how these questions then would help us to get unstuck. So I hope you found that helpful. I really find it helpful to ask myself a lot of questions. I kind of have the case of over curiosity, but that over curiosity helps me a lot because I get curious, I ask questions, and then that helps me get unstuck. So I shared with you today a lot of the questions that I asked myself. Brittany, Kim also contributed to this list because we both tend to, and pretty much all of us at Re+active, tend to see a lot of complex cases. And we will feel stuck, and we get unstuck together by asking each other those questions. So As I said, we're diving into this topic because this is our course, our central nervous system connectivity course. It's next weekend. It is recorded, so if you can't join us live, you can grab the recording. We have people submitting their own cases, so we can talk about those and discuss those cases with the neurologists that we're with and with our whole team. I'm really excited about that part. That's one of my favorite parts of our weekend courses, is working through people's cases together. And today is the last day. Brittany and I, many people have asked, like, how can we do mentoring with you and Brittany? We're going to give away a one-on-one mentoring session for people, anybody who signs up for the course by today will be in that giveaway. So if you want to sign up today. Is October 2nd. The course is next weekend. It will be recorded as well, and really hope that you can make it there. And certainly send me questions, post questions here in the comments if you have them about the course. And can't wait to see you all next week. It'll be the day before the course, so you know that my mind and my curiosity is going to be super high. I can't wait to share with you some of the sneak peeks of all that we've been putting together for the course. So I'll see you next week.